American lynching culture, and he's contributed entries on blues and gospel to the New Anthology of American Poetry. His poems have appeared in numerous publications, including Plain Songs, South Carolina Review, and Whole Notes. He's an associate professor of English at NC State, where he teaches 20th century American poetry. And his poem last November won second place in the 2011 Erskine J. Poetry Prize, and it appears in our current issue. So, thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you for such a wonderful evening, and thank you for those of you proud enough and strong enough to stand. It's a delight to be here. Poetry is really everywhere, and I love it when I find it in children. You know, they're the most amazing folks. One time I handed a poem to a girl, I think she was in 6th grade, and I wanted some feedback. I said, "What do you think about this poem?" She said, "Well, I think there's 2 things that could be improved." I said, "What would those be?" She said, "Well, I think you should dot your I's with stars and turn your apostrophes into hearts." Pretty good advice, pretty good advice. And, you know, I also had a good fortune one time when a 5-year-old in our family was spending the night, and the next morning he got dressed and he came out, and he walked out and he said, "Jason, I'm not sure that I got everything on right. Do my socks rhyme?" I said, "Oh, and I've never met anybody that dressed so poetically correct." You know, it's a real pleasure to be here, and I take my inspiration from our surroundings and our setting. The theme of the evening around this fine museum is women and text, and so I decided to go back through my set of poems and pull out poems that celebrate, talk about, and serve women as their focal point in any number of ways. And I think what we'll try to do is move from youth to wisdom, right? Frost said, start in delight and end with wisdom. Let's start with, you know, youth. It's a good place. The poem that appears in Smartish Pace is entitled Last November, and I have to admit I was really proud of myself, not for the poem. What happened was, I'd written about 4 or 5 poems about the fall colors 2 years ago, and I felt like an idiot because I'd never realized that there were so many colors around. And then about 10 days later, somebody mentioned, you know, that this was the most spectacular colors in the Raleigh area in like 50 years. So I felt like I was noticing something I shouldn't have missed. This poem deals with the difference between the imagined and the real, and the joys that many of us enjoy by being able to go back and forth between what we imagine and what we see, and those that live in a way that they're stuck in. Leaves fall from trees like drunk butterflies. At a place where dead vines wrap like barbed wire, fallen pine needles catch, hang onto lower branches, caught paratroopers with their legs spread. Chased by a yard blower, willow leaves scattered like minnows, by the oak's crab scuttle. Shekinah, mentally retarded, age 10, lives without similes, knows only metaphor. Leaves during recess, handful after handful of potato chips crunching between her teeth. Ken and Sue Kirshner are here, and this poem is inspired by their children. And I always love it when these things make their way into poems. The poem is entitled The Sandman. Most girls host lemonade stands, of course, and some boys use cardboard boxes to build a rock museum where they charge for tours. But near the shore, your children built a snowman made of sand, asking God to calm the tide so he won't melt into the ocean. I spent my life in gymnasiums playing basketball formally all the way through college, and I thought for sure I would be able to come up with a great poem about gyms, the people you meet, the nicknames, the incredible personalities you come across. I met a guy one time that was so vain that he wore a toupee and a headpiece while he played, and he put a big bandana around his head to hold it in place. I always imagined that guy at night, you know, what did he do with that? And I just pictured those little Lego men, you know, that you get. Strange behavior. And you meet some great nicknames. One time I met a guy who was 6'5" and 290, and he just moved from block to block. And And after the game, I went and introduced myself. I said, I'm Jason. He said, they call me Iceberg. But none of those poems amounted to anything until one day I found myself alone in a gym, and as so many writers in here know, a poem found me, too good that I couldn't even ruin it. The poem is entitled At the Gymnasium. There's still a silver bird cage around the clock, but all across the ceiling they've just installed motion sensing lighting, spotlights awaiting her arrival. Today, no players, just a loose belt on the air conditioner spinning to the rhythm of a jump rope. She's all alone, the fat girl. She tests this maple floor with her toes as if it were bathwater. Delighted, she looks up, her chin admiring the fireworks. One by one, they explode with each step. This court's become a stage. Slide circling, she twists a waltz in figure eights. For a moment, she's forgotten the tribal drumbeats of angry basketballs, her unforgiving swings at tennis balls and shuttlecocks. She's a star for a day, here of all places. Yeah, I never found out her name and she never saw me, but I remember a few months after that, I was walking around and I noticed a different woman observing me and doing a little writing and looking at me writing, and I thought to myself, have I just become the subject of her poem? Yeah, probably do pay better. I'm really enamored with the works of Auguste Rodin. I've studied them formally and informally, and I've written a long series of poems about his works inspired by his sculpture. This particular one is about his favorite model. She sat for him more often than any other, a wonderful Italian name, Adele Abruzzese. And this sculpture is over at the other museum in town. It's a woman in a tight position with rocks all around her, and if she could speak, I think she'd say, "Unfold me." The poem's entitled "The Caryatid." This is a metaphor for the model's work, unrobed, unnerved by the perpetual stasis of posture, pose. That rock on your shoulder, the last of the raw materials, soon to be removed by the sculptor. Never rising to release the weight stiffening your wrist, you hold it for him. You wait without deliverance, ignoring the desire to flinch, itch. Like all of life's cold creators, off stage, forgotten by the world when time distances those shadowed by their masters. This is a monument to all of Sisyphus's anonymous daughters. This poem comes from a hike that I did in Yosemite National Forest. It's entitled Sentinel Dome, and it's about a celestial woman. This is the clearest view the moon has ever had with you. She spins the sky you're standing in. The sky is earth blue. She turns it full circle. Yosemite Valley comes into focus. Don't look up to smile. You're not the subject. Her lens is set to panorama amplified. Her crescent eyes smoke white. Her eyelids open tight. Standing on Compass Rock, you spin Mount Emerson, Half Dome, El Capitan. This is how it feels to be a camera lens. Then a snapshot of the Merced, complete with sun flash. She saves it in a file labeled Earth, then moves on to Venus. There's a poem about a woman highly intellectual but a little bit vain. It's entitled Myrtle Beach. She said there's something great about jet trace. Those eraser marks across a blue page. I demand a text-free sky. They campaign against banner ads. Don't ask, will you marry me? Skip the buffet at Calabash. Let the stage stare at empty seats tonight. Half-price t-shirts make my hips flare. She tans in praise of jet trace, eraser marks across a blue page. Literary critics have given us a great language for understanding mirrors. their madness, their optic ability to make us think about mythic norms that don't exist, and the fact that we perform our genders. This poem is entitled Mirrors. Morning spent restoring a self-portrait, stroking an eyelash, patting eyebrows, tapping cheeks with tinted flour. We always see everything reverse. The right is left of what we want. Before flat eyes, steady on the wall, reach for something wet to ripen lips. Search where gray won't disappear as sugar into tea. Try to disguise the line still held in thought. When we pay, one in hand, to see if back is square or round. Alone, we stare until we sing. All this staring, yet we don't like ourselves. Worse, should we return to our first home, that mirror holds all the tears of our childhood. We need more eyes to see each other's faults, convex to warn how wide to turn, side and rear to guess when it's safe to pass, too small to solve how far we've come. Caution, objects in mirror are older than they appear. A compact in your purse so you'll never be alone. Mirror, mirror in my palm, whose gloss outshines the wall? By dark, we've changed again. We groom until curtains rise, and we're the first to learn who we are tonight. This poem has a word in bold at top, but because we're in a museum, I'm just going to change the title to Untitled. And I'd like to publicly thank Tom Lisk, who on more than one occasion has gone through my flaccid verse and tightened it and compressed it. And this is one that he helped along a great deal, so thank you, Tom. There's something in the strange we can trust. On the way home, I found you as I uncapped your Burt's Bees. Earlier, I rubbed a weary hand between the wrinkled sheets, searching for a trace of you. Waving south through the linen, I felt where it must have held your core. I found a soft place, still warm. I cornered the remainder of you in the fleece. Tonight, you're sauteing shrimp with butter, diced onions. I wonder, should I be grating Parmigiano Reggiano? Instead, I reach for a more robust souvenir. Quick as a plectrum on a mandolin, I offer the zest, rich with orangeness. Many of us have a secret paperback identity. And it takes a pretty expansive imagination to remember events that never happened. This is a poem about the space between the lived and the real. And listen carefully, it's not about biographers and genders. It's entitled Barcelona. She's leaning on a speed queen, imagining a hotel in all its vacancies. Her husband's lips are spoiled milk. His eyes have turned to rust. He forgot to lock all of their tomorrows. As the clothes roll in vertigo, she spots the dress and thinks, home is not the real. The trip where they didn't see much of Spain. Instead, she felt his secret eloquence. And once there, they spoke only in breaths. She sleeps to feel. Her dreams gain depth until her dreams become events. And he is more real than any book she's ever read. Her husband holds her hand as they stand along the beach. They sat until their shadows reached the sea. They're free. Sometimes when she wakes, light reminds her of those mornings in Madrid. She chins the sheets. Eventually, the shade lifts, window next. The air reminds her of his breaths. This is about a woman who is willing to do something forbidden. Let's see if she gets away. Love is a language written in Braille. Far past the old man sweeping the sand with his pirate wand, the walk where she ends up carrying her sandals. The moon gave us shadows, not ourselves. Instincts our bodies followed. I said, let my hands follow everywhere my eyes go. Forbidden as walking the halls of a museum and taking a single finger to touch colors on every canvas. I became your scholar, tracking text towards every place you kept unpublished, lifting parentheses, touching comma. Blessed by water, cursed by wind, my body was your blanket. And we kissed long after love. Our bodies finished, but our hearts weren't done. Then, the forgetfulness of sand beneath our feet. Above oil stains in the parking lot. Fragrance leaves no finger. I said we'd get to wisdom, so we're supposed to be there now. 2 years ago, I had the great chance in Arizona to look at a number of rugs. And these rugs made by Navajos are amazing things. Some of them were priced upwards of $24,000. A brand new rug that Alice Walker would be thrilled with because it's meant to be thrown on the ground and walked on for everyday use. And so I studied these Ganado reds, these eye dazzlers, these wide ruins, and these burnt waters, and I said to myself, there's got to be some amazing wisdom behind the women that make these rugs. And so this poem is a collection of 5 short aphorisms about the knowledge gained by those Navajo rug makers. It's entitled Advice from the Navajo Grandmother. Never talk bad about your rug when you're in front of it. Always ask your rug what it wants. Lightning paths, whirling logs, squash blossoms. If it doesn't answer, place a spider under the wood. Never finish a rug at night, you'll go blind. Always tell your seller and buyer, burnt waters last 1,000 summers. Chase your daughter to the loom if she tries to run. This is my final poem, and I'm reminded of a great quote by Robert Lowell about Elizabeth Bishop. He said about her, she engaged in a lifelong performance as an ordinary woman. And I think there are many women that live this particular way. There probably never was a who without a where, and so this poem is about a place as much about a person. It's about a small city in northeast Illinois. It's the kind of place where men give women jewelry in place of words they've never said. It's entitled Lena, Illinois. Every Easter we ended the hunt with the same number of pastel eggs swirling in our buckets. In Lena, Illinois, gifts varied only by color. Between holidays, empty hands were quick-filled with butterscotch discs, peppermint wheels. July 4th, silver sparklers were counted, measured, then lit in our fists as we went running like ghost welders. We caught whole fireflies, then divided them even Steven for their glow gems. I'd visit from a place even further than town, handed a tumbler when thirsty, answer when mistakenly called Tyler, the name of my closest cousin. Listen to the admiration bestowed Mrs. So-and-so's little shaver. I night climbed those tired stairs for heaven's sakes, always sure to piddle before bed. I can't remember a single day when the measurements of weather didn't matter. At my grandfather's funeral 2 decades earlier, they said he began too poor to pay for the tires on his tractor. So the landlord, well, he made a deal. He'd buy one if Don would pay for the other. Then the rims wouldn't ruin the yard when he drove to the field. No one mentioned my grandmother, Edna Miller. She plowed rows by hand. In every birthday card she mailed, I got a stick of gum and a $2 bill. 20 years later in the fellowship hall, we honored her with a tater tot casserole. Hot dishes everywhere, green beans and mushroom soup, crowned with French fried onions, weak lemonade, dozens of stale tea rolls. Like her, others women learn some things are best through doing. Hand-rolling noodles, snapping string beans, canning 100 pints of hand-picked blackberries, shaking tablecloths clean. They believe there are some things men should really know about women. She had just willed her death rather than sell the farm for room at the nursing home. In full equality of mind, she refused her appetite. She died for the land. A week later, I watched a crow refuse to move off the road, bounced under the axle of our front wheel. Yeah, she divided 160 acres of good Illinois farmland even between her daughter and her son, like Easter eggs or the last stick of juicy fruit torn in half. And Lena, the wives of American farmers, died their deaths, the world's poorest millionaires. Thank you very much.